Hello, guys. This is episode 27 of the Football Truth podcast. I'm happy to have my friend Alex Ward of Bahe Shoes on the platform. And we're going to be talking a lot about barefoot shoes, about foot injuries, and what's really going on with let's say, the sports shoe industry. And I know everyone loves to rock their new sneakers, but we're going to tell you why those are terrible for your feet and why Bahe is the answer. Welcome, Alex.
So thanks for having me, Taylor. Yeah, excited to get stuck into it.
Yeah. So just for those that aren't aware or aren't familiar with Bahe, just give us a quick overview of who you are, who the company is, and why you got into business.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, so um, probably most people haven't heard of us, to be honest. We've only been going a few years. We're quite a small brand based out of the UK, and yeah, so Kishan and I, my co-founder, created the brand a few years ago. We actually spent a long time before we launched it to the public, really working out what we wanted it to be as a brand. My background's in footwear design development, so I've been working in that space for getting on for 20 years or so now, in different types of brands, different capacities, working with different types of products all over the world. So I managed to build a good level of expertise. And yeah, Kishan and I linked up and we're kind of exploring about opportunities. We both love sport and we wanted to create products that were better for the sports world. But obviously, it's like just about the most competitive industry to get into as a brand. We both kind of felt this shared frustration with how things were going. It felt that a lot of brands were kind of designing within quite a narrow scope of product, like they focusing on the same old thing and just tweaking that a little bit, so making things a little bit lighter or a little bit more rebound, or these same old things. And were they really helping people, or was it just it might give you a slightly quicker time, but were you becoming stronger because of that? So we
Mhm.
wanted to kind of think a bit more like outside the box with the design, try and be a bit more holistic with what we've created. So yeah, we spent a long time thinking about what that was, why people exercise, what they want to get from it. And the first thing we kind of came across is like, well, we're like thinking about how exercising outside is such a fundamental thing. Like I know you really advocate a lot, right? And how I actually near to Essex University where I live, and they do a lot of research on what they call green exercise. So the benefits of exercising in the presence of nature, which is reduced stress, lower perceived exertion, like mental restoration, all these things. But as a brand designer, you can't own that, which is great. Like you can exercise in any products, but we were like, okay, how can we make that a more visceral connection? How can you make people get more from it? So we started researching and came across grounding as a concept, which we both were kind of familiar with, but we hadn't maybe put a name to it at that point. Like a few years back, we kind of, if you go to the beach or you're in the garden or whatever, you feel good. But like, actually, what was the science behind it? So we spent a long time kind of researching that. So yeah, we then basically decided to create a brand making grounded sports products. Spent a long time reverse engineering that technology into the products, trying to look at ways to make products that actually connected you back to the earth, rather than like this big shift towards like maximal products, which actually maybe might make you a little bit quicker, but like really disconnecting you from the earth, disconnecting you
Mhm.
from your body's natural function and whatnot. So yeah, we kind of started off on that route, and then we've evolved more into a barefoot shoe brand and everything around that, which I'm sure we're going to dig into. But that's kind of the backstory of how we got going in the first place.
It's amazing to hear. I want to hear what other companies or brands were you working on or working with before Bahe?
Various things, to be honest. I actually started to do a PhD with a leading sports brand,
Mhm.
researching on the sort of design process way back. I actually didn't finish doing that. I spent like a good amount of time working within the company, really enjoyed it, but it was kind of very much like engineering and away from the human element of it, and I wanted to kind of
Mhm.
reconnect with that. So I kind of got what I wanted from that, and then I moved into what I wanted to do more, which was actually working on the product, being creative. And a lot of that is about actually like picking things up, working with people, and actually getting into the manufacturers and like speaking with them. So my first like in-house role was at a company called Pendant, who own a load of different brands. So they have like Lacoste, or this is going back a bit. Some of these things have
Yeah,
changed,
yeah.
but they used to work with Lacoste, Ted Baker, Speedo, so various brands. I worked for a smallish brand called One True Saxon originally, who were like a kind of a small UK menswear brand, but really nice products. And that is where my first kind of got my experience going to manufacturers.
Mhm.
With them, it was mostly in Portugal, one in India as well. And you just need to get there and see how things are put together. And I kind of like built that knowledge base. And then I went
Mhm.
through, after that, I went to a brand called Oliver Sweeney, who are like a quite leading menswear brand in the UK. And so I was head of design there. I worked there for about 6 years, I think, 6 or 7 years. And that was a great experience because like we worked with like really like top end manufacturers all over the world. You go to Italy, hire a little Fiat out, drive down to the factory with your notepad and your pencils, and you're drawing, you're creating product,
Mhm.
working with the manufacturer, getting something made, looking at it, reviewing it, which is great. It was obviously like it's more kind of formal product than what we do now. And
Mhm.
then I've got a son now who's now 9, but when he was 1, I wanted to move out of London and like him to grow up in more of a countryside. So I left that capacity and then started my own thing, working with like a whole host of different brands. So helping them either like launch or existing brands, like helping them with design development. So like a whole different like set of brands, and yeah, a lot of things from that. Like there's established brands, which is cool and interesting, but also like working with startups and just that energy of things. And that's what I always wanted to do myself. So that kind of drove me a little bit to kind of make this jump a few years ago and like, actually, let's create something. I've kind of done all this learning. And also
Mhm.
a big thing is like big companies, just there's so many people involved. You have like all these different levels of responsibility. You've got designers who've got like quite a focused role. Then they might hand it over to a developer who has to bring it to life. And then you'll have a merchandiser who decides what gets bought and the margin. And you got a CEO, like millions of layers, right? And things get a bit lost. And I just thought, like, if you've got your own thing where you can have the vision, you can speak to like experts around the world, you can speak to athletes, you can like just create what you want. You don't have all these different steps where it's like having to make
Mhm.
compromises and whatnot. So, yeah, it's been an exciting journey. And yeah, still early days, I think, with Bahe. Like, we've done a lot, I think, but like, it feels like there's a lot more potential as well.
Yeah, and that was one of the main reasons that drew myself to talk to you guys is that you guys were small, but you were ready to innovate. And I think what you're saying is when you're working in a big company that has all these different layers of control or different layers of bureaucracy, it's really hard to get anything done because you have to get checks from everyone, and everyone has to kind of have their piece of the story, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few elements to it. So, definitely that. And the other thing is, there's this term of like disruptive innovation. Like if you want to
Hmm.
go into like a niche where something's genuinely new and genuinely different, there's not probably much of an audience there. So if you're one of the biggest sports brand in the world where you have to turn over like multi-billion dollars, you're not going to go into this, oh, let's do grounding shoes for like,
Yeah.
there's no, there's not enough of an audience for it to like really move the dial for them. So they'll be like, okay, this last year, this running shoe in this colorway did well. So we'll do a bit more of that. And we'll, people like this bit of technology, we'll do a bit more of that. And it's not really like exploring things fully, like really
Hmm.
challenging things and trying to build into like niches and then grow them. Like, the kind of stuff you're doing is awesome, but it's still like a lot of that's still not really hugely hit the mainstream, and it will, as it's like the kind of more understanding that kind of takes time to develop, right? And same with what we're doing, it's like kind of niching down, trying to really identify issues, trying to find novel ways to sort it, and then it can scale up. But like the big brands can't really do that, and yeah, they are kind of slow as well. Like they have the big budgets to do things, which is great, but like actually to get from the idea to the conception to sampling it to testing it to launching it, like it's never quick in footwear. There's so much to do, but like we can move a
Hmm.
bit quicker than the big guys, which is exciting for us. I think we've come a long way in the few years we've been going. So yeah, it's exciting.
On the previous topic that you mentioned about grounding, that was also one of the main reasons that caught my eyes because for I think over 10 years now, I've been wearing barefoot shoes. I've been telling clients to wear, different types of barefoot shoes for different use cases. Could be like running on concrete, could be hiking, could be just more like casual use. But none of these companies understood or even cared to look into this idea of grounding and the body being able to absorb electrons from the earth, and how that has a really positive effect on the body, and really is goes to show how the body does really operate like a battery, and if you don't treat it right, like you really will not function at the highest level. And that was what drew me to you guys. So can you just like quickly explain to someone that might not understand, how can you ground through a shoe? How is that possible?
Yeah, totally. So it's not intuitive how you would be, and in fact, shoes
Yeah.
have been the problem really in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, because previously we evolved being in direct contact with the earth. We'd have been barefoot, we'd have slept on the earth, we'd have been in constant contact. And now it's kind of easy to forget how rarely we are directly in touch with the earth. You're either like in your house often, or you're driving a car, or you're outside wearing shoes, and shoes would tend to disconnect you from the earth because rubber is an insulator, EVA foam is an insulator. I mean, even leather, it's not really a conductive material, and even like cotton and wool and stuff like that, these aren't really conductive. Like they're not. You wouldn't use that for a you wouldn't wire your house with it.
Yeah.
Let's say. So our challenge was to like find ways to put conductive materials into the sole of the shoe. And in fact, some of the technology isn't completely novel. It had to exist for safety products. So if you needed to be grounded, if you worked as an electrician, or with like people that work on semiconductors, and you can't develop like a static in your body, that they'd need to be wearing grounded products. Our challenge was to take that kind of technology, strip it all back, make it as efficient as possible, and then put it into a sports product. So basically, on our current shoes, we have like a rubber outsole still, but what we've done is we've added a carbon additive to the rubber. So our soles are always black. They have a little green plug bit on them, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's the grounding bit." In fact, that's the only bit that isn't grounded, because we can't put the carbon material in that green bit. So all the black element of the sole is conductive.
Mm.
Then we
Mm.
have like a series of layers between the sole and your foot. So we have a loop of stainless steel thread as like a webbing, like a kind of ribbon thing that runs through the midsole. On the soles, we have midsoles. Some we don't. And then on the insole, the bit that you can slide out the shoe has stitching in stainless steel. The reason we use stainless steel is we have used silver in the past, and it's great. It does work fine, but like silver will oxidize slightly, so the performance will depreciate slightly over time. Whereas stainless steel is it won't. It will maintain its conductivity. Surprisingly, it's actually very, very expensive, the stainless steel thread. The silver one's expensive, but the stainless steel
Oh.
one's crazy. But it's like, because
Mm.
of that performance element, I don't think there's a lot of demand for most people to use this kind of thread. So it's kind of pretty novel. We have in our socks actually have a blend of organic cotton and stainless steel in the socks to fully like
Mhm.
optimize the whole connection.
Yeah, amazing. I think what you're working on is really a true testament of how, just because we're living in the modern, modern times, in the modern 21st century, it doesn't mean we have to go away w- from nature and from what exactly how we were designed to function, being grounded, like you were saying, all day long. Because if you go back 100 years, I mean, most humans, they were grounded pretty much all day long in one way or another. And just because now we're in this day and age, it doesn't mean we have to go back to that age, just to get back to grounding, right? Like, we can create modern technology that still has in mind some of these principles. So that was the main reason why I found myself liking your shoes, because there's so many companies, like, of course, they just have zero interest in expanding into this type of tech.
Yeah, totally. I don't know why it is necessarily. It's maybe it's difficult to do. To be honest,
Yeah.
it's a bit expensive to do. Like I said, I think there's a huge opportunity in terms of awareness. Like we've definitely found that as a company. Like when we launched 3 or 4 years ago, it was very niche. It was like a few people like yourself who are like super aware, like the kind of biohacking community, people that are like
Yeah.
really into health and wellness. We were kind of appealing to. We launched with a running shoe, and to be honest, that space was a tough sell because like as a running shoe, the product we produced was good, but like there's a lot of good running shoes out there, right? So it's a very
Mm.
competitive space, and unless people knew about grounding, they probably were going to buy another brand. Just because the awareness element. But that's kind of starting to grow. You're seeing many more like elite athletes, like you see Erling Holland talking about it. I think
Yeah.
Lewis Enrique is a big advocate, isn't he? So like that's helping. We've actually been exhibiting at I think called the Health Optimization Summit. It's the big like biohacking event in London, and we've been there 4 years now actually. And it's been so interesting seeing like year after year how much that awareness has grown and more people are aware. Our philosophy, to be honest, is how we want to get people to be out in nature more, like to feel more present in nature because that's so important, but also like to make things easy because there's so many things you can
Mm.
do, right? Like with your diet and all these like so many gadgets and whatnot. But like what we wanted to create is a product that doesn't necessarily change what you're doing; it just enhances it. So you're probably already
Mm.
outside, right? You're going for your walk, you're going for your run, you're training.
Mm.
You've got to wear something often. Like if you can go barefoot, then great. Like forget the shoes, like just
Yeah,
go
100%.
straight to barefoot. But like if you're going to be outside wearing shoes, like why not just add this into it? So that was kind of our philosophy: make it easy, enhance what you're already doing, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the biggest dynamic that I see is, there online. There's so much marketing about different types of gadgets that enhance sports performance from the recovery side, or from the recovery, like all different facets of recovery, but none of them actually try to work with the natural systems of the body, which grounding is the is the first and foremost thing that every day you're supposed to have your feet barefoot on the earth, and we were all designed to do that every single day. So I categorize Bahe as, taking athletes back to nature, as opposed to a lot of these companies that have different types of machinery, or gadgets that are attempting to enhance recovery, but they take you further away from nature. And I'm
Yeah,
not gonna kind of go I'm not gonna go into specifics, because like these brands are so well known, but like all these, like most clubs, like they're spending thousands, if not like millions of dollars on a lot of machinery, gadgets, equipment that, in my opinion at least, are very ineffective, and take you further away from nature.
yeah, yeah. There's definitely like a big disconnection happening from
Mm.
between your body and the earth from a grounding perspective, from a sensory perspective. I was actually seeing there's more like AI powered shoes starting to come out. So they'll have like sensors in the sole, and then they'll feed back to you how your body's moving and talk to you about your game or not. And it's interesting, right? Like
Yeah.
if in the right product, yeah. But like it's like we have sensors, right? We have a brain, we have a body. You've got
Yeah.
like millions of nerve endings, and we're then basically putting these like big thick shoes on which numb all that and then
Mhm.
replace it. It's like, well, we've evolved to be able to perform, to be able to move. It's almost like, I don't know if this is the best analogy, but like sometimes it feels like you've gone to the gym, you're trying to lift a weight, and someone's going, "Oh, look, we've made this weight like so much lighter for you. You're going to be able to lift more because it's light." It's like it's taking you
Yeah.
away from your actually body being the thing that performs. Yeah, we're really keen to like we completely get, especially when you're looking at a sports context. People want to perform. You're not going to be able to say, "Look, it's all about your body. Don't worry about the end result." Like you need to get both. But I think if you can really like harness the power of your body in every way, every sense, whether that's through grounding, whether that's through fascia, whether it's through having stronger tendons, like creating product that makes your body work in a healthy way that then strengthens it, makes it more resilient. I think that's a huge opportunity for people. And you're seeing,
Mhm.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but you're seeing a lot more players become more aware of that. Like you've got the really high end examples where you see like Cristiano Ronaldo and LeBron wearing barefoot style shoes, and like Mo Salah's always barefoot when he's training and stuff like that. But like also, we're in touch with a lot of athletes who are like maybe slightly lower level but still elite, and they're like
Mhm.
becoming much more aware and seeing the benefits. And I suppose when you're trying to get those marginal gains, it's like it's thinking a bit differently, isn't it? And I was chatting to somebody about a slightly different subject, but kind of got into this thing of reliance versus resilience, right? If you might be able to perform well under these very set of circumstances where you have this machine or this product or whatever, but like, are you
Mhm.
resilient to when things change or you have to move differently and whatnot? So I think by kind of reconnecting with the earth and then strengthening your body more holistically, there's hopefully like more resilience, less likelihood of injury, better performance. So yeah, it feels like this is probably a big next step, isn't it, in like elite sport?
Yeah, it's a huge one, because I think like those big guys that you talk about, like LeBron and Ronaldo, like in my opinion, I think guys at that level, sometimes they get people in their ear that can attract them to some kind of therapy, or the methodology that simply is there because it's expensive. Like you have these like super expensive machines that cost $500,000, and it's like, just because it is expensive, it's interesting. When in reality, everything you need is more or less for free: grounding, sunlight, good sleep. Those like fundamentals have so much potential for improvement compared to the marginal gains that you get from some of these devices or some of this equipment. And like earlier, like you mentioned about like the sensors in your foot, one of the things that I really I like to criticize a lot is these different wristbands and the Aura Ring and these different devices that are I think they are informative of saying, okay, like here's my heart rate, here's how many steps that I got. But I think again, like you were saying, like these devices are more and more and more taking you away from you yourself observing your own emotions and feelings inside your body, both like physically and also mentally. And instead, you are listening to a device telling you how you feel instead of becoming better at feeling yourself.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
that's actually a lot of the training that I do with athletes is to help them get deeper into their nervous system so they can learn to feel better, because many people, especially younger athletes nowadays, because they're so glued to their phones and they're really attached to modern living, they've really lost touch with their own sense of well-being, so they become addicted to their devices. And now like you're seeing with the shoes and the watches and the Oura rings and even like the monitors that like players wear on their chest while they're playing, I'm really against those and think they're really harmful. But people love to know like their average like sprint speed, which like so many of those stats are so irrelevant to to human performance, in my opinion.
Yeah, I suppose there's this element of you measure what you can rather than what you should. Like they just want to put a number against everything because it sort of
Yeah,
satisfies people's. I guess there's like an instant like dopamine release of like, oh, I've seen this, and you know. But yeah,
exactly,
I completely agree. It's
exactly.
removing you from your own senses and like really prioritizing what's important. I mean, it's definitely like you say, it is there can be interesting things that come from it. Like we've had people that are very much monitoring their sleep score and this sort of thing, and saying, oh yeah, we've since wearing the grounding shoes, I've noticed my sleep's better. Yeah, I guess it's like a couple of ways of looking at it. Like one is like,
Yeah,
that's great, you can measure that. Another thing is like, well, how do you feel when you wake up? Like, is that the most important thing?
yeah.
So it's fascinating, isn't it? I think that's the thing. Like, we have to be discerning because, especially with AI becoming, progressing so quickly, there's all these measurements, there's all these shortcuts, there's like, but like, what really matters? And I think that's the challenge, isn't it? As us like creating product or creating, thinking about how we enhance people's performance, like what truly matters, and actually saying no to some things and like this, challenging stuff. I think that's really key. Not just going with measuring stuff for the sake of it and then completely removing your senses from you as a biological human and everything that comes with that. And because
Mhm.
that isn't not everything can be put with a number against it, kind of like. And maybe that's
Exactly. Yeah.
also something that's kind of reflected in football more from a tactical perspective, how those sort of like maverick game changer type players or those events which are a bit more like at random that really, you know, have value, they're harder to quantify. So you don't get so many
Mhm.
players that are like that, and the way the game's being played is kind of changed, which is a shame as well. So yeah, it's like trying to work out that balance, isn't it? Lots of like infinite opportunities now, but yeah, trying to work out what's good and what isn't is the challenge.
Yeah, I think that goes along with how nowadays with the internet, people have an abundance of information. So it's more of like how well can you decipher what's good and what's bad versus in the old day, there you did not have this much access to information online. So there was much less of like filtering. It was more of like, oh, can I find something about this topic?
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think I'm always good at linking everything back to shoes. To be honest, it's kind of my
as you should.
line. It's my line of work, but how my mind works a little bit. But yeah, I think the same from our perspective. Like we're setting out to design a product, and again with like AI, it's incredible. Really, technology, you can type stuff in and something
Mm,
will be generated in an instant, and it's impressive because it's like it looks like a shoe. It's shiny. It's got these angles. Is it good? Like that's the question. Like that's what I think as designers
mm,
and creators we need to think about. Like what is it you want to create in the first place? Be able to judge if
mm,
something is good, and then be able to like do the fiddly stuff behind the scenes to actually bring it to life. But like yeah, like we're in an age of infinite content. Hard to work out what's right, what's true, and we have to be, critical thinking is just the key thing, isn't it? It's a real skill, and it's not necessarily taught in school. You have to develop it, but that's yeah, a really important thing at the moment.
yeah, I think back in the day they were well, I think progressively there's less and less of that being taught in schools, critical thinking, and now with AI, people are just AI might become like might become a religion of sorts where people just follow what it says, which doesn't sound like a good future. But I think people will eventually like figure it out, because I think even now people are figuring out that there's so much stuff being produced by AI, but now it's like saturated and it's almost becoming generic, and humans always adapt.
Yeah, we are, I think, very like plastic, aren't we, in terms of like how we can learn, which is great, but also
Right.
we can be, people are shaped, aren't they, by their environment, what they read. So I think it's important for people to be aware, because it will, shape people's opinions and how they think, and a lot of these things kind of happen subtly, don't they? So I think like it's just about being conscious, isn't it? Like how you're using
Mm.
technologies, and the same if for I guess digital technologies as physical technologies, but yeah, also trusting yourself, right? Like knowing that you do have a mind and a body that can do these incredible things. So not everything needs to be outsourced. There's this like term of cognitive outsourcing with AI, where it's like you just allow it to do basic tasks for you. It can be good for efficiency, but also like sometimes
Mm.
it is just good to like write notes and scribble out a note and tweak things, and like sometimes it's doing hard stuff, which is what leads to breakthrough, doesn't it? And again, like physically and
Mm.
mentally, like you can measure everything, and but sometimes you just need to do something hard on a football pitch, don't you? You need to like you
You know,
need to run hard, you need to train hard, you need to go through some
yeah,
difficult things, and then
yeah.
you come out the other side. And also from a team perspective, right? Like those sort of like shared mutual experiences. I think in
Mm.
friendship are important, but also like that's why team sport is so good, because you go through tough stuff together, and yeah, it
Mm.
isn't just about being able to put a measurement against it. It's like how hard was that? Like what did we physically go through? What was the challenge? So yeah,
Yeah, spot on. I think just in the same with the foot that we'll talk about more. But I saw like an interesting thing recently about like software developers that were using too much AI, and then when they went back to like coding normally, their skill level went decreased a lot. And so it's, I think, as people more and more like rely on AI for certain things, the average, let's say the average cognitive ability will go down. In the same way as when you rely on modern shoes, as we'll talk about, the foot itself begins to atrophy and begins to decrease its own innate functionality. So I'd like to hear from your perspective, Alex, in the like what have you seen, or like what, because at first, like you mentioned, that Bahe originally was about grounding, and then it became more about or also became about barefoot shoes. And myself, I've been passionate about barefoot shoes for a long time, since I had a foot fracture, and kind of came to my own conclusion that modern shoes were one of the culprits, uh, let's say one of the factors that contributed to a non-contact stress fracture, as they say, which most doctors just say is bad luck. But instead, I kind of say, well, if my foot is in the shoe all day, and there's arch support and a heel raise, and the toe box is very narrow, and on top of all that, there's a rubber outsole, so there's no grounding. It sounds like my feet would probably not be as strong as they could be.
yeah, indeed. I think we're kind of told that we need more support, aren't we? And
Yes.
not almost to not trust our bodies to be capable of things, which is obviously not correct. And yeah, they kind of might feel like subtle things, because kids are often put in dysfunctional shoes from such a young age, so they've
Yeah.
like in the really traditional thing of like bound feet, where feet would be like really tightly constricted, and they grow in these strange shapes. Like it's in a less extreme way, we're doing that to like everyone almost, aren't we? Kids
Mm.
put on stiff school shoes, stiff sports shoes, their feet don't grow very functionally. And like my son's 9 at the moment, seeing how kids move, running across hard surfaces, jumping,
Mm.
landing, sliding, like all these sort of like really dynamic things, and how we're kind of often moved away from that through dysfunctional footwear. So yeah, there's a few elements, aren't there? Like as you raised, you've got firstly the narrow toe box, pushing your toes into this like unnatural shape, and particularly your big toe, like it should be
Mm.
straight and it should be able to articulate as a hinge, but it's often pushed inwards, and that can cause bunions and all these other like conditions down the line. But essentially, it's like not great for your balance, your overall strength, your overall function. if you're wearing a raised heel, it's pushing your posture out of alignment. Pushes different stresses through your knees and your hips. Everything just obviously comes from your feet up, doesn't it? So like,
Mhm.
often when there's injuries, I can't remember if you've used this term, but like the idea like the injury might be presented at a certain joint, but often it's caused from the joint up or down from that kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
if you're seeing maybe ankle or knee injuries, it could be because something at the toe and kind of working its way up. So yeah, there's a lot of education. This space is like really growing. I think once people switch to this kind of product, they get it, they see it, they feel the difference, and then it's like you wouldn't tend to go back to more conventional shoes. Um, yeah, so our journey's been quite interesting because we launched with a more conventional product, and to be honest, that was
Mhm.
because that was what we understood. To be honest, like that's the backgrounds. Like Kishan's a big runner; he's running that kind of footwear. I've been designing product where
Mhm.
just being really open. Like I thought I was making good quality shoes with brands
Mhm.
like that. They were durable. They're using good material. We tried to make them flexible. We tried to make them light. But in terms of shape, we weren't doing a great job. And that's just the norm. Like if you go into shoe manufacturers, if you go to the people that make the lasts, which are the things that the feet the shoes are built around, if you go into these manufacturers and there's thousands of lasts on the wall, not one of them looks like a foot, which is just mad. The industry is just like so fashion orientated. You don't have to be skilled you don't have to know anything about foot to become a shoe designer. You can be good at drawing
Mhm.
pictures, you can be good at spotting trends, but you don't have to know anything about shoe. So it's this really crazy thing because you have a real responsibility as a designer. So like as we became more educated, we like, right, we need to get into this. Like interestingly, and this is great, when we launched the brand, we're like, so many people that are into grounding were like, oh, okay, we love the shoes, but we wish you did a barefoot style product. And so we're
Mhm.
like, okay, we need to switch, get into this. So like almost immediately launch, we started to like transition our product away from this more, let's call it traditional fit, to the barefoot fit. And it was great because like again, the advantage of us being relatively small is we could have loads of interesting conversations with like experts around the world, like running coaches,
Mhm.
podiatrists, biomechanics experts, like athletes. Like we just spoke to anyone we could speak to, and also like going through the transition to this kind of footwear ourselves, I think gives you like a real different perspective, like gives you fresh eyes on it. Because I think once you're used to it, you're like, oh yeah, everyone should do this, but really, like they should. But like it's good to remember that like to begin with, it's quite tricky. Like you have to adapt a little bit. Your feet probably aren't
Mhm.
functioning as they should. There needs to be certain levels of exercise, certain things to like build up to the kind of the most minimal shoes you can get
Mhm.
away with wearing kind of thing. So I think us kind of going through that personally, combining that with like speaking to experts was a really good process. So we kind of launched with our style, which we call Revive, which is like it was kind of like a nice entry product because it had like a
Mhm.
6 millimeter midsole, so it had a little bit of cushioning, but it also had the zero drop, so you were like in correct posture, had the wide foot shape at the front, but with that little bit of cushioning, just made it a little bit more accessible for people. And then we kind of observed how often the barefoot shoe brands do a great job, but they're quite purist about most minimal is best, which we would agree with under the right circumstances. But it's all about getting towards that, and maybe different circumstances require different type of products. So we've recently launched this concept called modes, where we have three different levels
Mhm.
of cushioning. So they've all got the same barefoot fit, like that's a non-negotiable. They're all zero drop, which is a bit of a negotiable. I think there's, if you're transitioning, you might want to go from a little bit of a heel wedge down to zero. But yeah, that's quite key. They're all flexible. Obviously, the most minimal ones are the most flexible. But yeah, we've got three different levels of cushioning, so you can kind of work your way down because I think it's trying to do it in a sustainable way because you want to get people strengthened wearing this kind of product and sticking with it because that's when you see the true benefits. But if you jump straight into it, it's hard, especially if you're like an athlete because you can't probably allow yourself that drop off period, can you? You can't be like, right,
Mhm.
I'm gonna give myself 2 months or 3 months to like really strengthen. You need to keep on performing throughout, don't you? So if you can kind of gradually introduce these things and like constantly like strengthen a bit more, you can build like a more sustainable, more resilient foot and body, and really benefit from it longer term.
Yeah, from you and my clients, the big thing is just trying to help guys understand that they need to listen to their body as opposed to listen to what they've been told about, oh, I have to run 5 miles per day or I have to kind of achieve these arbitrary benchmarks. Where instead, if you actually just go barefoot, or you try and make some changes in your lifestyle in regard to your feet, and just start the right way and listen to your body, and then just peel off once you kind of reach your limit for the day or the week. Because definitely, like in the earlier phases, like with myself, for example, after I had foot surgery and kind of like I was in a cast, a boot, and then from there I was trying to walk barefoot like on like soft sand, uh, before walking barefoot on concrete or like anything like that, and just kind of like in that fashion took it step by step to get myself to be able to handle walking on concrete, even before talking about like trying to jog on concrete barefoot, which is a lot more complicated or a lot more intensive that I think even most athletes don't even need to train for to run barefoot on concrete, because if you're playing on grass, it's uh, a different hardness that you get compared to concrete or on the track, let's say.
Yeah,
So
I guess the advantage of a harder surface in short bursts is it you get a bit more feedback to like
yeah,
realign your
exactly.
technique. Like if you're running on a hard surface and your technique is bad, you're going to really feel it. Whereas like if you're doing it on a softer surface, it's a bit more forgiving. So that is probably good for a
Mhm.
check-in. But like I agree, it's not you know and we kind of evolved on natural surfaces which would have
Yep.
variety. I think the real key thing you'll probably find is when you're wearing the most minimal shoes or you're barefoot, the difference you feel between concrete and hard earth is so different because you just
Oh
get
yeah,
so much
yeah.
sensory feedback on even if you think
Mhm.
it's like quite flat, there'll be the odd stone or there'll be like grass or twig. Like, it just gives you like sensory feedback. In fact, like I've noticed when I'm wearing our most minimal style, it's called flex. Like you kind of start seeking stuff out. You're like, I want to tread on that stone because like it gives like you can feel something, and it's like it
Uh,
makes your like joints with and your feet move, and it's just a very different experience. Interesting, also what you're saying though. Like, were you transitioning when you were injured? Because I think that's often what people do, right? Like that might be a window where there's like this is the time you can like make these more significant changes. Because it's interesting with players. Like we've spoken to a few. So obviously we have like people that buy from us and like people that really engage in this stuff that like want to be
mhm.
involved. But then other times we reach out to players who are like so nervous of changing the status quo, even if they're not like if they're getting injured, like they've
Mhm.
got problems, but they're scared to move away from the norm, even if the norm's causing them problems. So it's fascinating.
Well, like for example, there are some teams in Spain, in the football world where, like in their contracts, they tell them they have to wear these shoes all day, and these shoes have like a huge um uh like a huge orthotic in it or some kind of custom insole that they think is good for them in this moment, and over time that breeds this like reliance on this artificial support, which then like mentally, because like I've heard stories of some clubs where it's like the kit man, uh, like for an away game, the kit man forgot to bring some of the orthotics for some of the players, and like they freaked out, and it's like now there's like this like mental belief that they need these orthotics when it's actually quite ironic when a lot of these players uh well, nowadays in the English Premier League, a lot of these players came from very poor backgrounds in South America, playing barefoot on the street all day. So how are they doing that barefoot? But then now they come to England. They've been here for a few years, and they are reliant on a custom orthotic.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's like we're trying to find solutions for problems that don't exist quite often. And yeah,
Yeah.
people always want. I guess it feels like making an intervention is a good thing, but it's not necessarily. I guess there's times and places like we're realistic and we speak to like
Hmm.
expert podiatrists, and they're gonna. There will be times when you maybe need to have a bit of a heel lift because you're transitioning down or you haven't got a
Yeah.
range of movement, and there's times, but there's not. You don't need to apply to everything, do you? Like it's fascinating what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, if I have a client that comes to me and like he's playing at the highest level, I'm not going to tell him tomorrow go for a barefoot jog on the concrete. You know what I mean? It's like maybe I'll tell him to do some things in his house barefoot on the tile or the stone. It is just a few exercises, not jogging. And these are very minute um, doses of intensity that is good to give them feedback, because that's one of the things. I'm not sure if you've ever used this explanation to anyone that is kind of hesitant to trying like barefoot shoes, or they think that like heel striking is a better way of moving. And I'll tell them like, well, go and try and run barefoot on concrete and heel strike, and you find out very quickly that the body was not designed to do that.
Yeah, it's crazy though because like you're saying with the example within the clubs, right? And they would maybe
Mm.
have like the trainers who are telling the players, and they
Yeah.
develop this like belief system, and that's from what the trainers have learned through their education. It just takes
Yeah.
so long to like change these beliefs. It's crazy because when I was studying, I used to read papers to look at how the body would move, and it was like this is how people run. They heel strike, and this is the
Mm.
force. Like they'd have like force traces of like the impact
Hmm.
loads at different stages, and it was just the norm. This is how people run. They heel strike, and it's like it's measuring what you can rather than what is actually correct. And
Hmm.
yeah, it should be that you start from a natural situation and then work from there. But it's hard because like so many people are a result of their environment. I think like
Mm.
a lot of people don't really run naturally because they have grown up and been wearing products that have stopped them from being able to do that. So it's like if you're going to test someone who's running in that kind of product, they're going to run that way because they've been wearing product which has forced them to run that way.
Mm.
So it's like, again, I think it's interesting when you see how kids move because they move so much more freely, and the way they land, they can absorb impacts where like you see children running around on a hard floor. A lot of adults would suffer so badly with that because their techniques all over the place
Yeah.
because they've not built this resilience. Yeah, it's fascinating. I think like properly rethinking again, like we're saying, like this kind of critical thinking about how our bodies have evolved pretty effectively. We've become like the dominant species on the planet. Like we must have been able to
Mm.
do this ourselves without having all this extra support and adjusting our gait cycles and stuff. So yeah, man, it's like it will take a bit of time, won't it? A bit of education, a bit of adjustment, but people can get there. Like it doesn't take forever, does it? It's like little steps, and like I think like the term like habit stacking, where it's like you
Mhm.
spend a bit more time barefoot and you get a little bit more natural light and you improve your sleep a little bit. All these little things you can do, I think they kind of come together, don't they, to help like a bigger collective. But yeah, there's huge opportunities in there.
All those changes, they help the body create some more natural dopamine, and then the brain starts to think better, and then before you know it, why was I doing those things before? I was crazy.
Mm.
And then now you find yourself living a better life.
Indeed, yeah. I think it's just there's so much intensity, isn't there, at the moment with
Mm.
just being fired content at us and short document hits and like things getting shorter and shorter and shorter to make us easier to
Mm.
advertise to and all these quite challenging things. You just need to take a step back, don't you, when you can, and take those moments. To be honest, like I said, try to create product to help people reconnect with nature. And what we've really loved to hear is when people like just maybe take a slightly different route with their walk and they feel a bit more
Mm.
present because of that. Because some of that's like we didn't force them to do that, but like they've kind of gone, these shoes have got this grounding technology. I'm gonna rather than take the pavement, I'm gonna go through the park, or like these little things, trying to
Yeah.
build them up, isn't it? Because it's just being present. It's just noticing things, looking up from your screen, looking out your window, like observing these like small things in nature. It's just so much more meaningful and healthy for
Mm.
you. Like my last night is a very small little funny thing, but like we where we live, there's a field out the back, and my little boy and I go and play in the evenings, often just running around doing silly things. And
Mm.
last night there's this bat flying around, and he was just like so like entertained by it. He was like, "Oh yeah, let's stop the game we're doing. Let's watch this." And like those little things are just so important. Like things are there that are so rewarding, interesting, good for us, but you need to kind of notice, and noticing is a skill, isn't it? And it should
Mm.
be encouraged. So yeah, and it feels like that sort of thing is quite removed from elite performance in sport, but I don't think it necessarily is. I think it all kind of plays into the same thing.
Yeah, well, the most valuable players on the pitch are the ones that can do the unpredictable, that are spontaneous. Those are the most valuable players. You know, it's the guys that are predictable that become goalkeepers, or they become center backs, or they become, you know, the positions that are more about discipline and and organization, as opposed to the guy that just turns the game on its head, you know,
Yeah,
and can do the unthinkable, which
yeah,
is again the most valuable player on the field.
yeah. Really interesting because I think like traditionally. people would have been good sports people, right? They'd have been good at
Mhm.
cricket and rugby and basketball
Mhm.
and football, and then they'd gone on to become a footballer. But they'd had all this like wealth of different experiences and
Yep.
different reference points and different ways of moving and different ways of viewing things. Again, I can link everything back to shoes, but like with my line of work, I've worked on all different products. So you work on different types of shoes, but I've also worked on like clothing, accessories, and you kind of see different ways to work, different ways to explore challenges, and that sort of like having that more experience, I think is really good. And yeah, I think for sport as well, it's like trying to build up that sort of. It's almost like a nutrition, isn't it? Like a
Mhm.
wealth of variety it just benefits you further down the line in terms of your creative thinking and how you can read complex situations and how you can think quickly. And yeah, it's cool, isn't it? Because you
Mhm.
think like football has got to such a point where it's like hard to really how do you improve from here? But there's just opportunities where it's like looking at things a bit differently, aren't there? So yeah, I love speaking to you, mate. It's like so interesting all these
No,
angles.
actually, um, the term that I created to kind of describe what you're talking about is movement vocabulary. And the more sports you play as a kid, the more fun you have in the backyard with your parents and your siblings and your cousins, and you just mess around and like you're running on rocks and like you're jumping over things. That you just become more adaptable, and um, the brain learns to problem solve because like nowadays in school that term problem solve is attributed to mental riddles or some kind of mathematical issue. But in my opinion, problem solving is not just a mental, it's a physical, where your brain can figure out how to problem solve you jumping past this defender and putting the ball in the top corner in 1 second. Like trying to problem solve all the physical problems that you have on a pitch in terms of sport, which that is I'm seeing myself that ability to problem solve physically is what is becoming less abundant with modern athletes because they are trained like robots from the age of 5, doing cone drills, ball mastery training, which is great in kind of in its own amount. But like when it becomes the main way that you train athletes, they lose the ability to have the spontaneous uh, creativity, which I think again also you develop a lot when you're barefoot as a kid. So with your shoes in the industry, like helping athletes have a better way to stay connected to the earth and have a little bit more of that connection to the ground, because that's one of the things that I think most humans forget is that your feet are your only connection to the ground. There's no other way for you to feel the ground unless you want to walk, unless you want to crawl around like a gorilla. But more or less, we have our feet, and there's thousands of receptors on the skin of our feet that are there for a reason. If you let's say disrespect them, and everything about your ability goes down.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, there's a lot in that actually. A lot of really interesting areas you picked up on. I think like
Yeah.
from the creativity element, I think yeah, it's interesting because saying it's like a physical thing. I think that sometimes like I know like with what what I'm doing with ideas on products is one
Mhm.
thing, but even like do you notice how often when you're away from stimuli, like I don't know if you get many flights or whatever, but sometimes when you don't, you just
Yeah.
can't access your laptop or whatever. You just have this moment where you can't do much. Like ideas
Mhm.
start coming to you. Like sometimes these things
Mhm.
can't be forced, or like I find when I go to sleep, which isn't very easy when your ideas start coming to you. But like, often that's the
Yeah.
thing where you kind of switch off from everything. Things just like come, and yeah, not all of it is like easy to understand, is it? A lot of it is kind of quite subconscious. And if you kind of was it? Did you say movement vocabulary? Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So like the more you kind of expose yourself to movement wise, experience wise, like having solved problems in so many different contexts, it's like kind of yeah, like it's on a subconscious level because like you if you're on a play on a pitch, you've got less than a split second probably to make a decision. You're not going to go right. I'm going to weigh up this option. Here are the pros and cons. It's like it's that stuff that's sort of like within your body, right? It's like muscle
Yeah.
memory and yeah, fascinating. So yeah, there's definitely like
Yeah.
more wealth of that like movement vocabulary is going to help, isn't it?
Yeah. The it kind of all goes back to the flow state and how well an athlete can be in touch with their senses as opposed to being in their head too much. Because if you try to think your way through doing a trick or how I'm going to pass the ball, instead of you just trust your instincts and you improve that connection to your instincts, which most people don't have a very good connection to their intuition, so they can't really, listen to what their thousands of years of evolution is telling them to do in the moment. That's where they freeze and they don't have solutions. So I think again, if you can just increase your connection to nature through your lifestyle, diet, but of course like your feet, all the better.
Sure, yeah. In fact, Bahe means flow. it's it's
Really? Okay.
a Hindi word
Which
for flow.
which
So yeah, the reason I guess there's like so many elements. What yeah, and a big part
yeah.
of it was that flow state because it's like that's where you want to be, isn't it? Like
Mm,
being good at something in the moment, being present. Also, obviously, like the flow of electrons into the body, like various
perfect.
things seem to make it a really nice fit for the brand. But yeah, you hear that so much with players, don't you? Especially like strikers, where it's like I had
Mm.
too much time to think, or and I know there will be
Yeah, true.
techniques maybe with that, where it's like how you can calm your mind or whatnot. But like it's
Mhm.
often yeah, things can maybe get trained out of people as well as into them, can't they? If you kind of over
Exactly.
intellectualize something that is quite innate, like so.
Yeah, exactly. I think like nowadays people are complaining about how like modern football is becoming a bit, is becoming a bit boring. Where like wingers aren't really going at guys anymore. Like wingers just cut in, pass the ball square, and like where's the genius? Like where is that like there's very few players that are special nowadays, I think,
Mm.
because they just don't have that connection anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I suppose the element is like the consistency is key, isn't it? You can't really
Mm.
make mistakes. I guess in certain parts of the pitch is weighing up
Yeah,
that like where you
exactly.
can
Yeah.
make mistakes and where it's worth taking that risk. But you need some of that magic. I'm from Colchester and going back a little while ago, but like this player, I don't know if you knew him, Lomana Trazo Loa. He ended up going to
Yeah.
Newcastle and playing
Yeah.
around, and he was at Colchester for a bit early on in his career, and man, he was incredible. Like remember one game he came on. I think they're losing 2-1. He came on like I don't know 60th minute, scored 2 goals, but like just incredible. Like creates something out of nothing, beats a
Yeah.
man. Like he did these somersaults after scoring, didn't he? So he was on the bench because he was like I think a little bit injured. Scored two
Okay.
goals, like basically won the game. Somersault, injured himself again. But it's like as a fan you love
Awesome.
it, and it's like that's what his bit of stardust took him to like such high levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so much more exciting, isn't it? I suppose for coaches, it's hard to know, you know, what players should have that, or how to balance the team and stuff. But you definitely need some of
Mm.
that. So what makes it like the most exciting game, isn't it? That have those sort of like game changers, and they're the people you talk about in 20 years' time, isn't it? The
Yeah,
one
exactly.
that
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think at the end of the day, players forget that originally a football and all sports is just to entertain fans.
yeah,
So it's so important to not forget that you are on the field to entertain.
yeah. I think it's like it's such an important sport. Like, and I know my experience growing up, I was never at like a super high level, but like there's so
Mm.
much to it, isn't there? There's like the fact you're outside, and there's so many things that keep you from being outside nowadays. So that's obviously
Yep.
key. It's like
Yep.
if you can try and use it as a chance to like connect with being outdoors. I know you're not going to play football necessarily in a wood, but you're on this like grass, natural surface. You're experiencing the elements, experiencing the seasons. There's a sort of community element to it, which is so key and becoming even more important, I think, in the world we're living in, where people can get more siloed, looking at your phone. That element of it, like the banter with your mates, I think also like character building. Like I
Yeah.
was at one of the companies I worked at was quite big, and we had football matches a couple of times a week, and it was just such a leveler. You'd have people that are interns, and you'd have CEO, and if you go, you play football, and not even necessarily about ability, that obviously helps, but if you're good, people like you. But like, if you play with the right attitude and the right spirit, like it's just the ultimate leveler, isn't it? It like just brings people
Mm.
together, and yeah, like we talked about these elements that outside of the pitch can help you on the pitch. I think vice versa, right? Like things that you build on the pitch also help you in your life off the pitch. So I love
Mm.
it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you 100%. That's football. Really important because I mean, I guess if you go back in the old day, you know, like when you had when you had the gladiators in the Colosseum in Rome, you know, they were just meant to basically distract all
Yeah,
the all the people. But there are so many benefits that I think young athletes get from being in the team environment, leadership, communication, handling things under stress, like uh, really important skills that are really transferable into the workforce. Let's
yeah,
say,
yeah, absolutely. And I think
yeah.
throughout, like even at grassroots levels, there's so much opportunity, isn't there? Like I suppose what you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at often is more elite players, isn't it, or people aspiring to that. But I think
Mm-hmm.
throughout, like we, it's worth questioning everything, isn't it? Because like these things you're talking about with like putting more measurements in, and that's happening at really like grassroots levels as well, isn't it? Which is like, is it needed? Like you see
No.
how kids play, it's got to be different at that. Like even like over here in the UK, the pitches aren't always
Mhm.
great, which isn't ideal. It affects the
Yeah.
way games are played. But like you see these kids on this like massive pitch, and it's like you need to adapt it for them, don't you? And take it back
Mhm.
to what's like what these core values are, because that hasn't necessarily changed. You can improve the way you play and be a bit more tactical and whatnot. Like I think a lot of these sort of things are creeping into the adult game more. It's also an issue like for kids football, isn't it? So like I think being aware of that as well, and like it might be that some of these sort of like more holistic trends hopefully also work their way
Mhm.
back down, because it all has an impact, doesn't it? Like it really influence like, what you see in elite sport, is influenced down to like grassroots level. So like these opportunities that we're talking about, like I think go from top to bottom of the game.
Yeah, I mean, everything starts with the kids and just trying to build out that next generation. I mean, it's one of my hopes to open up my own academy here in Lebanon, but that's kind of in the works. I haven't launched it yet.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. It'd be so rewarding, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is also when you are a young kid and you love football and you're going through the whole world of like academy, club, and that whole system, and there's coaches that are assholes, and there's parents that are yelling, and there's like politics, and there's all these different things happening, and it's just like, well, I just fell in love with the game. And I'm just a young kid, and I just want to like have fun and play. And it's like the more that you can foster that, I think the better players that you will develop.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It must be such a bubble, that atmosphere, and like what outside inputs do they get, and do they like question the way things are done? So yeah, fascinating. I think if you were to do something with your approach, it would be so fascinating to see like what kind of players they create. You should do it. I mean,
Yeah, that's the
for
plan.
these things we talk about the challenges with the modern world and whatnot. There are
Mm,
also a lot of great things. Like if I was play like younger now, with access to some of the things that are out there, like stuff you're doing, being able to like
mm,
actually get like top level guidance on stuff.
mm,
Even just seeing little clips about technique. Like often, coaches at lower level are just someone's dad or whatever, like or mum,
yeah.
and they know a bit. But I remember we played once, and we were thinking like under 14s or 15s. We were okay, but not fantastic, right? And at that time, the Galacticos, like the first Galacticos that Real Madrid were playing, so it was like Zidane,
Mm,
Figo, Raul, and they played on Tuesday night. We got training on the Wednesday, and our coach was like, "Who saw the game last night? Like, we just need to try and play like that." It's like, mate, we're all rubbish. Like, we're not Zidane. Um,
yeah.
but like the little things where like you can see access to like guidance on technique or guidance to training things. Like if I knew this stuff about foot health when I was
Mm,
younger, I think it would have transformed the way I'd have approached training and myself
mm,
as a player, and it would have given me a lot more like longevity as a player. So it's trying to balance that out, isn't it? Like filter what's like just noise and distraction and measurements for sake of measurements, and what is like incredible resource now, like stuff where you can get these like bits of guidance from like you know athletes, elite trainers, and then learn it as a kid when you're able to like change how you play for the rest of your kind of career. So it's cool. It's just trying to find that mix, isn't it?
I'm with you, 100%. Yeah, and I'm the same. I wish I learned all this stuff before I had all the injuries. I would have probably had a much more glamorous career in football, like playing myself. But ultimately, that's kind of the path that was put out in front of me with all these injuries, so I could help other players. avoid or at least fix them correctly, because the big problem is, players get injured, but then what do you do to fix it? Oftentimes creates more issues, and then they enter this vicious cycle, you know,
Yeah. I
where
suppose the question there is like, who's got their best interests at heart? Is like, because
Mhm.
for the club, what do they want? They want to get them back on the pitch as soon as possible, or they want to maintain perception of their value by getting them back and seeming like papering over the cracks, I guess,
Mhm.
which is not ideal. But I suppose from your perspective, and often with this sort of thing, right, you wouldn't have arrived to where you are now, or the questions you're asking, unless you'd been through some of these tough things. So it's painful, isn't it? But maybe
Mhm.
for the long term, it's, you got to look at the positive, I suppose, haven't you? And like, what, because I've had a lot of issues with my feet for different reasons, and I know how limiting that is if you can't perform the way you want to perform or do the
Mhm.
things you want to do, and it really, like, it's a motivator, painful one at
Mhm.
times as well.
Yeah, 100%. If I didn't have any of these problems, I would have never got into barefoot shoes, and ultimately would have never got in contact with yourself, Alex. So I'm more than happy to actually also, guys, announce, like, in the effort of bringing change into the world, myself, and Bahe are actually releasing a collaboration, and I'll on the video I'll put some pictures here, and it's my hope that footballers across the world start to adopt barefoot style shoes that help you ground, because it's such an easy entry level thing to fix, and it will have exponential gains in your health and longevity in the game of football.
Yeah, I can't wait to launch it. It's great. I really appreciate
Yeah.
us being in touch and all these conversations we've had over the years, and like bringing this product to life, which is, combining our shared visions. Really exciting. And it's got your colours, which you can hear the background to the colours as well.
Yeah, so basically, I started Football Entangled, and I was really influenced by a guy named Dr. Jack Cruz, who talks a lot about quantum biology, and he's a neurosurgeon, and talks a lot about how light is more important than diet, and the word entangled actually came from him, and it basically just symbolizes how everything in the world is connected, and there's no small details that are irrelevant. Like, everything has a meaning. And so, like, grounding and sunlight and how your toes function, how that's important for how you run, all these things all add up together to create, the package that we call performance. And with the colors, like the kind of like the purplish color has to do with ultraviolet, and ultraviolet is like one of the most important light wavelengths that has a lot of really powerful effects on the body, but also kind of um, more in a uh, metaphorical way. This color of light is something that nature uses all across the world, but in a non-visible fashion. So this purple kind of is a artistic um, symbolism of ultraviolet, and it just goes to show like how interconnected the body is. Like, for example, in your stomach, a lot of the bacteria um, actually use extreme low frequency UV light to communicate. And so it's like we as beings truly are made of light, and those are kind of one of those like small little details that goes to prove that notion.
Love it. And also, it looks cool in the shoe.
That always helps.
Yeah,
That always helps.
but yeah, man, that's fascinating. I love all that, and yeah, that sort of whole things are so linked, aren't they, throughout? And
Mm,
it's fascinating bringing all that together. But yeah, really appreciate the opportunity to do this together. I think it's great.
of
Like, I think
course.
there's a huge opportunity for more awareness in this world. Like, I think it's growing and in a really healthy way. But yeah, like, I think there's a lot of scope for like us as a brand. We want to explore more areas within sport, and I think it's
Mhm.
a really good first step.
Yeah, I think all clubs in the world should have their teams be wearing proper shoes. But the problem is they have these deals with these with Nike, Adidas, Puma, etc. And how will you get them to stop wearing these shoes that are causing their issues, because they're being paid to wear them.
Yeah, and
That's
they
the
get signed up so young, don't they, players? But I
yeah,
guess like our angle as a company is like we're never going to be able to compete with these big players in terms of
yeah, of
sponsorship
course.
deals. But I think what we want to do, our aim, is to create products which give them a different type of value. Because so often you see great young players who might be like 17, 18, looking like they're going to be world beaters, and then next thing you know, they've got an ACL injury. And I'm not
Yeah,
saying, you magically change your shoes and you're never going to get injured again. Who knows? Like
of course.
we want to try and make products that help create more resilience. And if we can contribute to that, we'd be happy. Like that's what we want to do. We want to compete by creating products that like genuinely, add value, help longevity, help performance. And because we have people buy our products like elite athletes, which is like, you know, there's not enough to sustain us as a company, or we have to sell to all different types of people, right? But like whenever we see it,
Mhm.
like a player buy something, it's like, oh, I love that, like because you can see that they're like valuing that they can have access to anything, they're getting paid to wear something. You often hear there's
Mhm.
people being paid to wear things and then promote, a story basically.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, the opportunity is to wear products that like genuinely help you. So that's our goal, to keep on trying to create them. And I think there's like so many more opportunities down the line. So it's exciting to be at this stage and to see where we can take it.
Yeah, amazing, Alex. I thank you so much for your time on the podcast. Please, guys, check them out at their website, bahe.co, right, or baheshoes.co.
It's just bahe.co.
Okay, there we go. And then on Instagram, social media, and keep an eye out for the collaboration that I think we should be launching by the end of October, I believe.
That's the plan. Yeah.
That's the plan. That's the hope. All right, guys. Everyone have
Thanks.
a good day and all the best. Cheers.